What's that? Jesus.
So maybe you guys have your
I have unmuted. I'm done. Just got rid of it was muted.
You can actually, I think you can click and say leave meeting audio and it will disconnect your laptop from the meeting audio. So
Okay. Never mind. I'm just not gonna do that. Last time I just hit mute, it worked.
He was Johnny on the spot. Came over here. Let us know.
I thought it was me. As soon as I hit, it started doing that. So I was fiercely trying to get out.
Okay, according to, is that David's?
That's David's.
I think we should start.
It's very formal.
I like that. It sounds like my grandmother's grandfather clock. Love it. Okay, well, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. This is the Board Administrative Performance Committee meeting on September 12th. To remind everyone, if you'd like to participate, you can come in person as long as you are wearing a mask and you're social distancing. You can also participate in Zoom. You go to our website, you can download the Zoom link and participate that way, or you can call in by phone. Do we have anybody in the I'm just curious myself, do we have anybody that's online that is participating that's outside of this committee? Do you see anyone? Is it just us and the staff? Is that Scott?
Yeah.
Dan, it's me,
Yeah.
Jeanette. So I know Mary Ann's not on the committee. I think she's joining from the board.
Okay,
That's not.
welcome, Mary Ann.
Well, okay, thank you.
Okay, well then let's get started. It's call to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Dan Albert, your chair, your president. Director Gagliotti, City of Delray Oaks. Not present. Director Martinez, City of Greenfield. Not present. Director Burnett, City of Marina.
Present.
Director Pacheco, City of Seaside.
Present.
Director Alejos, County of Monterey.
Present.
So we have 4 present. Does that present a quorum?
So we
Yes,
have,
that is a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeanette. Is there any way that we could turn the mic on a little louder for the people that are zooming in? I can't hear them very well. Either that or Jeanette, you weren't speaking loud enough, one of the two. Well,
I can turn up my mic. Is that louder?
yeah, I guess so. Maybe it's just me. All right, let's go to number 2, public comments on matters not on the agenda. Just a reminder that this is anything that you'd like to address the committee on in the jurisdiction of MST, which is not on the agenda. There's a time limit of 3 minutes. The committee will not take action, obviously, but if it's something that's extremely important, then we'll have staff contact you and they could take care of whatever questions that you have. So is there anyone in the public, either here at our site or out in the virtual land? Anybody there that would like to make a comment? I don't think there is. Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll move to consent agenda. That's consent items are voted on all at once. They are regular items that come on the agenda that need to be approved. And so we'll go to 3.1, which is approved minutes of the Board Administrative Performance Committee of May 9th. And 3.2, approve the minutes of Board Administrative Performance Committee on July 11th.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Director Burnett we have a second. Let's take it out to the public. Is there anyone in the public that have a question on these items? I don't think there's anyone out there, so, okay, let's go to roll call vote, please.
Okay, Director Albert,
Yes,
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion had passed.
thank you. Let's move to action items. 4.1, review the administrative performance. Carl.
Thank you, Chair. Starting on page 59 of your board packet. And continuing on pages 61 through 70, you have a board performance dashboard for the complete year ending fiscal year ending June 30th. Some of the highlights you contain within those reports is that fixed route ridership for the fiscal year increased 38% over the previous year. MST rides increased 32% over the previous year. While those were healthy increases, that's still less than half of where we were averaging in pre-COVID years. So we still have a ways to go to get back to where we once were, but still healthy growth nonetheless. We don't want to minimize that. Our various financial non-ridership related metrics, we are falling within standard. Our safety, on-time performance, system reliability. With the drop in ridership, our fare box recovery ratio, which is had been prior to COVID a mandate of the state that we had to receive a certain amount of revenue required by the fare box, that has been suspended. Since the onset of COVID, our association is working to permanently suspend that requirement. But in the meantime, that requirement is still below our standard. So we do want to keep an eye on it, at least until such time the state decides to suspend that permanently. We did in the past year renew our partnerships with the city of Monterey and the Monterey Bay Aquarium. At least partially for the trolley this year. We didn't get the whole season, but we're working on that. We did get partnerships with the California State University, Monterey Bay, Hartnell Community College, and Monterey Peninsula College put together. So congratulations to staff on restoring those. Preliminarily, financial results from the fiscal year end June 30th showed that we had are showing a $6 million, over $6 million surplus to budget from fixed route operations and over $1 million surplus to budget from MST rides. Those numbers will be adjusted once we are audited. Those are preliminary statistics, but that there was some concern that we took $5 million out of our reserves to fund the operating budget for this current year. We're already back to even on that with this surplus. Great. So that's good news. We have, with the COVID relief funds and being very conservative, we have almost a year, $46.9 million of reserves. That's 93% of budget right now. So our cash position remains very, very strong. But as you see, our ridership is still struggling to return. So we are planning to use those reserves to, as we did this past year, we will be in future years funding out of this surplus until we get our ridership back to where it once was. So this gives us several years worth of, we're doing this at $5, $6, $7 million a year. That $43 million in reserves gives us quite some time to recover fully. And if we recover more fully before we go through our reserves, that helps us fund our zero emission bus programs for the future. Anyway, that concludes my Administrative Performance Committee.
Thank you,
results.
Carl.
Mhm.
Is there anyone in the on the committee that has any questions for Carl? Anybody have any questions? How about any comments? Because I know there's probably not anybody out there for public comment. Is there anyone out for public comment?
Sure.
All right.
This is Alejo.
Oh, yes. Director Aleo, do you have a comment?
Just a comment for Carl, I think many of us sit on different local governmental entity boards, but certainly a projection that MST might continue to rely on you drawing down on the reserves just for that just seems concerning. I want to maybe just have Carl elaborate, because it's not every entity that's saying that we're going to continue to use in our reserves in the future. As healthy as it may be, it's still concerning that seems to be the way we're going to be looking to balance our budget, by drawing down significantly each year from the reserves. At some point, it's going to put us in perhaps in a worrisome situation if we draw enough of our reserves down.
Absolutely, that's a great question, and your board does have an established floor for the reserves that we may want to take a look at adjusting in the future at 15% of budget. Historically, that was equal to our federal funding for the year, because that seemed to be the least reliable that we would get on a regular basis. So we wanted to have enough reserves to wait out the federal government for at least a year for our funding. The issue is really related to restoring ridership, and our last projections that we had from the Hospitality Association, they were still down 25% of their workforce to pre-COVID, and the colleges were down almost 30% compared to pre-COVID college enrollment. Those are two of our largest sources of ridership. So we want to maintain some reserve it may take more than a year, it may take 2 years for that to come back. Meanwhile, we don't want to be in a position where we're cutting service. So as a matter of fact, in December, we'll be implementing our Better Bus Network, which we hope will really do a good job in getting our ridership back. And then I think by the end of next fiscal year, at the end of this current fiscal year, June 30th, 2023, when we publish the results, probably around this time next year, we'll have a much better idea where we stand with the need to hold on to these reserves in a reserve capacity, or release them back into our capital budget. So it's really there for us to have a controlled landing, if you will, if things don't change in the long term for our hospitality industry, for our colleges, if things just stay in this compressed state, then we have a good long ways to plan for that, and we have the cash reserves to do it in a planned way and not in an unplanned way.
No, I just wanted to raise that, and but thank you for the explanation. Hopefully this doesn't last as long as.
Yeah. One of the things that we started reporting during COVID for your board is the cash projections. We project out over a year where we think our cash balances are going to be. And then we have a line there that shows what your board's projected levels are. In this packet, it should be somewhere in those dashboards. I've already misplaced the page, but it should be around page, let's see. It is on page 64, cash flow projections. We're going to continue with those cash flow. That's actually a very useful chart that we came up with as a result of COVID. At some point, we're going to get rid of this CARES and CARISA and ARPA funds because we're through all of those. But I think we're going to keep that cash flow projection for quite a while, because it's a really useful tool for staff Doesn't matter where you are on budget. We don't pay our staff and our vendors with budget. We pay them with cash. So we're going to continue keeping an eye on our cash and projecting that out for a year for the immediate future until your board tells us to stop reporting it. We're going to continue to report that.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Director Alejo, for those comments. I'm always looking at reserves and making sure that they balance out with our expenditures, obviously. Okay, David, I think I see your hand up.
I know MST provides great services, and I was concerned about the reserves as well. But I know with COVID has caused a drop off of, of people participating. Is there any thoughts or consideration, or are you doing additional promotion or to recreate the awareness of MST services?
Yes, in conjunction with so your board adopted the comprehensive operational analysis, which we are now translating to our Better Bus Network, which will be launching in December. There's going to be a very robust campaign built around increasing ridership and letting the community know that they can get there faster, they can get there more directly to where they're going, and they can get there at a lower fare. So saving time, saving money while saving the planet. That's kind of the tagline that we are working on, at least internally.
Great, thank you.
Yes,
So,
Director Burnett.
yes, as a follow-up to Board Member Pacheco's question. So I'm just wondering, in terms of long-term strategy, are we getting people out of cars? Are we seeking new riders, young adults who don't have licenses? What's the long-term strategy on developing ridership?
So we want to get the people who are already choosing to ride, keep them continuing to ride and riding more. First priority, because they've already made that decision and it works for them. The next level is finding people who are in that demographic of people who ride, socioeconomic demographic, and making services available to them that convince them that they can too be riding because it's easy for people like them. Then the third level is getting new people to ride, either through partnerships, like we're doing with universities, or new services, like when the surf kicks off. We think that when we can actually start showing people that they will save time, it's faster than driving a car, then we can get that third level. So we're doing this, and we just recently kicked off a partnership with Enterprise Commute, recognizing that the bus doesn't work for all people and all schedules and all shifts. So we are sponsoring van pools throughout Monterey County. We just kicked that off this month. And we actually get to count that as ridership for van pools that are over 5 members in a van pool. We get to count that as transit trips, and that's important because that impacts our federal funding. So the more trips that we can generate, the more federal funds that we can pull down. So we're trying all sorts of different ways to encourage more ridership because there is a financial incentive for this district to grow ridership.
Thank you.
Yes, Board Member Burnett, you make a very good point. This is a car culture in the United States, and I don't think it's just on the peninsula or the South County or in our county. It's very difficult. For instance, we have affordable housing units down in city of Monterey, 18 units. And of the 18 units, they have no parking, by the way. There's no parking. And of the 18 units, 17 have cars and 9 of them have 2 cars. So, I mean, it's that culture of trying to get them out and go to work by the bus. And that's very, very difficult, as you could see already. Getting back to the reserves, I know the hospitality industry is important, but we're a county-wide. And so as Dave mentioned, that it would be really good to see if we can make sure that South County and Salinas they're looking at other ways of transportation besides the, the hospitality industry.
Right,
in the city of
so
Monterey.
part of the Better Bus Network will include replacing on-call services in all 4 of the South County services and in the city of Marina with fixed route buses that will be running on a regular schedule, so people can predict. We think that'll encourage more ridership in those communities. And then with the Better Bus Network, vast amount of time savings. A trip from Soledad to Seaside will be reduced by 45 minutes to an hour based on the new schedule. So it'll start making the bus more competitive with driving a car. And then once the surf busway is put into place, the bus will be from many destinations to the peninsula and from the peninsula, utilizing the surf busway. The buses will be faster than cars. And then we'll actually see a real transformation in that, shifting away from car culture, at least for the commutes. And you were caught in that a little bit
I
yourself.
was, I'm gonna talk about that
Okay.
when we get to.
You know what we're talking about.
But just about hospitality and the college industries, hospitality, we had a booming summer on the peninsula. I mean, it was really big, at least July and August. And, but we still have the same amount of hospitality workers working. Prior to what's going on recently. And the reason I bring that up is eventually hospitality is going to have to hire more people. There's no, if they have them, there's no question about that. And it's the same with the colleges. I'm just hoping the trend in colleges is that we go to in-house classes or in-person classes. And that's not a trend where people are just zooming in. I'm hoping that will change. Anyway, okay, any other comments? Okay, let's move to 4.2, receive state legislative advocacy update. Is that Michelle?
That's me.
There you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. Michelle Overmeyer, Director of Planning and Innovation. My staff report starts on page 113 of the full agenda package. So my staff report was prepared before the end of the legislative session. So all of the bills that are listed in that table there have moved forward. They're all on the governor's desk now, awaiting action, and he has until September 30th to take action on those bills. So there's 3 options. He can sign, he can veto, and he can do nothing. Doing nothing is called a pocket signature, which means he takes no action and then it automatically goes into effect. So we'll continue to track those. But I was reviewing updates over the weekend and nothing new to report yet on those. So the houses are in recess now for a couple months during the campaign session and the November election. And both the Assembly and the Senate will resume on Monday, December 5th. So over the next couple months, I'll be putting together our draft legislative program for your review and feedback at your next committee meeting in November. And then we'll take that to the full board for approval in December. And that concludes my update.
Anyone from the board have a question? I have a question, but does anybody else have a question? Okay, I have one question on AB 1919.
Yes.
It says that they have received free and unfettered access to student transit passes, but no funding stream on that. What does it mean by access? Does that mean, I don't quite understand that.
So the author of this bill has been trying to get free transit for
Students?
public college students in the state. And the way the legislation is written right now is that it'll take effect if there is funding available. So far the legislation hasn't identified funding and the governor hasn't taken action on any trailer bills that might include funding. So that one's just kind of in limbo right now.
So it's not an unfunded mandate.
No,
There's
no.
got to be funding attached to it. for
Yes.
students. Okay. Okay, anybody in the public have any questions or comments? Seeing anyone? All right. Should we take, are we taking action on this or are we just
Receiving.
Right, okay. All right, let's move to 4.3, receive federal legislative updates. Is Don on?
Don is here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Don.
Thank you very much, Chair, members of the committee. Don Gilchrist with Thomas Walters and Associates. And so on the federal level, we've had a long break of some bit in August, and Congress has returned after Labor Day to have a flurry of activity. If we could advance to the next slide, the August break was broken up by the consideration of the Inflation Reduction Act. This was the revised version of President Biden's Build Back Better plan. That was enacted in August. At the core of it is $369 billion of various energy security and climate change provisions, a lot of clean energy provisions in there. And we're reviewing that legislation to see if it would be helpful to MST. There may be some programs that you could access to support your projects. There was a lot of transportation money in the original Build Back Better plan. It was scaled back dramatically. There's still a few provisions related to transportation. One at DOT is this program for neighborhood access and equity grants. That's really designed for reconnecting communities that have been negatively impacted by transportation decisions in the past. So I don't know if that will really be that helpful to you. We were very sad that the $10 billion program that was in the original bill was for bus programs that help affordable housing was not included. So it was very much scaled back, a real focus on clean energy, and a lot of the other provisions did fall by the wayside. Next slide, please. Now that
See, that would
We
back,
jumped the slide.
yeah, so there we go.
So now that Congress is back in town, we're focusing on finishing up the appropriations bills. We want to see appropriations enacted to keep the federal government open and operating once the new fiscal year starts on October 1. It's very clear that the full year bills will not be done by then. So congressional leaders are looking at a short-term continuing resolution that will keep things running until mid-December. And that way they would be able to adjourn sometime in October and come back for a lame duck session to finish things up. But our priorities for MST on the appropriations level are we want to see a full year bill enacted in December. We don't want to see various short-term extensions. And we want that legislation to fully implement all the big spending increases that were in the bipartisan infrastructure law. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem, but we do have to keep an eye on that just in case. Apart from that, we're continuing to work on general fund plus ups to the bus programs to try to provide more opportunities for you to compete for zero emission buses. And a big program that we're lobbying is the Capital Investment Grants Program, which is we're targeting for support for the SURF project. And so those are the key programmatic things in the appropriations bill that we're working on. But we do have a project-related provision that we're working. Representative Panetta was successful in getting $3 million in the House bill for your zero emission bus charging infrastructure and microgrid project. And we want to see the final version of the legislation hang on to that money or as much of it as we can. We'll know the status of that sometime in December, we hope. If we could advance to the next slide, please. This is just a chart that shows for a few of the very key programs that are important to you, how things have been going on the funding side. What this chart does is include funding from the infrastructure law and from the annual appropriations process. And so when you combine those, you see what the real number is that you're interested in. And you can see in the difference between FY21 and FY22 was the enactment of the infrastructure law. We saw big increases in each of these categories. Transit formulas increased by about 30%. Bus and bus facilities programs, which I'm including all of them. So there's a bit of double counting there, but we do want to see how that combined effort is going. Big increases, primarily because of the big investment in the low and no emission program for buses at FTA. And then capital investment grants is doing very, very well under the new approach, which combines $1.6 billion per year from the infrastructure law with additional money that the Appropriations Committee is adding. So you can see the numbers between the House and the Senate on the right-hand side for this year are slightly different, and we want to advocate for the higher number for buses, and that is the Senate number. And we want to advocate for the higher number for the Capital Investment Grants Program, which is the House number. And that will make the most opportunities for MST to compete for these funds. So there are very good things going on in Washington, D.C. for transit, and we're looking for a successful conclusion to these things at the end of the year when Congress comes back. If you could advance to the next slide, please. I'll pause there and see if there's any additional concerns or questions you may have.
Is there anyone from the board that would like to make a comment or have questions? For Don. Don, I just have one question about the capital investment grant for the SURF project. What are we looking at dollar-wise for that, or what are we searching for?
Your staff has worked really hard to put together an application. This is a grant program that you apply for at FTA, but there's a lot that goes into laying the groundwork for that. And so Mr. Sidoric may have additional comments. I believe the request from the federal government is 15.
Great. We have an update on the next item on the SURF, so we'll probably get to that. Thanks. Okay. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to comment on this? All right, seeing no one. Thank you very much, Don. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll move to 4.4, receive update on the SURF busway and bus rapid transit project. Before Lisa makes a presentation on this, or at least an update, I want to let you know that we did have an update. I'm not going to try and steal your thunder here, but I did attend it, and as Carl mentioned, it was very interesting and ironic. I drove out to Marina where we had our the event, and between Home Depot and Marina, I sat in traffic for 15 minutes, stop and go, and I thought, well, how ironic is this? And I was just hoping that I could see a bus path on there at some day so that I won't have to sit in traffic. So take it away, Lisa. Let's get this thing done.
Yeah, thanks for the tee up. I appreciate that. Lisa Reitheimer, Assistant General Manager for MST, and today I'll be presenting our outreach efforts as part of the SURF Busway and Bus Rapid Transit project. The outreach that we conducted was entirely voluntary on behalf of MST. It was not a public hearing or anything like that. We advertised, I guess is the best way of describing it, efforts through an e-blast, postcards. We had some Facebook, social media, paid advertising, and a community input hub for the public to provide their input and their thoughts about making the project better. So next slide, please. So we've been doing some pretty intense public outreach through the months of August and through September. We are wanting to gather input on design elements from the public, what types of bus shelters are important to people, things like that. We also wanted to share information with the public about the project. We did some additional public outreach during the environmental phase of the project. We've always been open and transparent about the project through various forums, committees, invitations to present to community groups and what have you. So we also wanted to engage in the community at different events. So we've been to National Night Out, farmers markets, the Monterey County Fair, the West End celebration, amongst others. We also have been available to present to community groups. We presented to Landwatch in August, as well as the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. I have a presentation scheduled for next week to the Marina Chamber of Commerce as well. We also wanted to engage online, the public through a community input hub. I'll go into that in a second, and also conduct an open house, which I'll also get into in a second. So next slide. So this is our community input hub. This is where people can go and conduct or participate in the benefits survey, and it talks about what things are important to people, about transit in general, and about the SURF project. And then we also have a project map where people can go in and place comments about the geography or the physical nature of the place. So far, we've had 234 visitors to our community input hub, 29 survey responses, and 8 map comments. This will stay up through the end of this month. Next slide, please. So the big event was August 31st. This was an open house for all of the engagement that we had online. And the majority of the comments that we heard at the open house were very positive. This was from 6 to 8 on August 31st. We had to open up a little bit early because people were so interested. So I consider that a success. Next slide. So we got some great photos of the event, which I'm going to go through, but I wanted to share some of the comments that we received from that open house. People could take a comment card and write things down. So I'm taking these verbatim from some of those comments. Excellent idea. This concept seems much more feasible than rail at this stage and beneficial to all sorts of demographics. I hope this can come to fruition at some point in the near future. Next slide. I think this is a win-win solution. It will draw more riders with speed. I hope it expands to other areas. Santa Cruz, San Jose, thank you for putting this event on. Next. From a European perspective, public transport brings a community together. More buses equals a good thing. Next. Will it improve hikers, cyclists' access to Fort Ord National Monument? I love that fans will be able to take express to the MC football games. As a side note, they're really fun. Thanks for starting this route and using emissions-free buses. Next. You can see the extent of the folks visiting that event and providing input. Last quote, it's nice to see BRT coming to the area. Hopefully it can connect to Salinas and Santa Cruz or Watsonville. Next. So far to date, since we began the quote project, we've had 87 meetings or presentations. We've reached 2,100 folks plus. But just in August and September so far, we've had 14 public events, meetings, or presentations, 900 plus people we reached, especially through the e-blast. We have had positive comments overall, which you just heard, but there is still a little bit of confusion that I'll go through here in the next couple of slides about the transit service, where it's starting, where it's ending, and questions about fundamental questions about sort of purpose and need, ridership, and traffic. Next slide. What you'll see here is answering the question about the start and end. This is the SURF project. This is the infrastructure only going from Marina to Seaside Sand City area. But then the next slide shows all of the service that will use. Next slide, please. Thank you. This one shows all of the services that will use the SURF infrastructure. So for example, a person will start in Salinas and travel on one bus all the way through Marina onto the busway and then to Seaside Sand City where the busway ends, but continue on that same bus into downtown Monterey. So the service itself that operates on the SURF doesn't stop and end when the infrastructure stops and ends. Next slide. We had some ridership questions, fundamental about who's going to use this. And the answer to that is that we have refined our ridership projections using a Federal Transit Administration model. And what we're showing as a base year, we use 2019 because it was the most complete data. We have 880,000 passengers base year. By 2040, over 1.2 million passengers. And then the next slide is a question about traffic. Here's a question that came in. Increased bus traffic on Reservation Road concerns me. Reduction in traffic on Highway 1 is only the number of buses that no longer will be traveling Highway 1. As you stated, more ridership are low income, no car people. I think this image here really drives home the point that when you have more people on buses, that space is freed up from the cars, which actually require a lot more space than a bus does. So even if we have, 15-minute frequency with service on Reservation Road, for example, there is very minimal, if any, impact to the traffic conditions on Reservation Road because we're taking off people. We're taking people out of their cars and into transit. And you would have to have hundreds of buses to impact traffic on highway or on Reservation Road to notice any difference. So the next steps are to continue compiling all of the comments that we've received to date. We'll update information on MST's website and use the comments to help people understand the project more and also refine the design so that we have a better project in the end. And that will conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Go to the next slide, please. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. Is there anyone in the on the board that would like to make a comment from the committee? Or a question? Do you have any questions?
I just wanted to make.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Lisa for her continued promotion and projection and reaching out to the folks in Marina in our area and being available to answer questions. I think it's been quite valuable and reflects well on MST. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, it was really well attended, which was very impressive, I think, especially from the community of Marina to come out and take a look at what's probably going to affect them the most.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
So that was good to see. And do you think that it was positive when you get
The
feedback?
feedback that I've received so far was, yeah, it's, cleared up a lot of questions, understanding the economics of it, what's driving it, the environmental conditions and things like that. Although I will say there are some folks who you can explain it to them many
Yes,
times and it
yes.
still doesn't quite get in. And I think the final designs for the termination of the surf in Marina before it transitions back to street is still a very high concern. So when we get to that phase, I think that'll be helpful to,
And we will continue to reach out to Marina, I assume, their community and make sure that whatever adjustments we make to this area, that they'll know about.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah.
anybody in the public that'd like to make a comment on this? I don't think there's anybody out there.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes,
if
Lisa.
you don't mind, to
Sure.
Director Burnett's point, we met with the City of Marina staff on several occasions. And it was clear to us in talking about the project that travel between the west side of the Del Monte area with the new apartments and housing there to the east side where some of the businesses, they're trying to get to some of the businesses, that access was really important. And so we had originally wanted to close off access across near Rain Dollar and make people go all the way to Palm. That was very clear that wasn't going to happen. And so listening to that and understanding better the concerns, We adjusted the plans, we changed the plan so that now there's a pedestrian access across the busway from Marina Drive across to Rain Dollar, so people don't have to walk or cycle all the way to Palm. So it's that kind of feedback that's really helpful to make this project a success. So we thank the city for doing that. And then the other thing I'll say is we're still working with the city of Marina on their downtown vitalization specific plan, because we want to make sure that we are incorporating those design elements into the busway pieces of the city of Marina, because it does go through the downtown area. So once we can get some very specific design criteria about landscaping or fencing or xeriscaping, whatever it is, we will automatically incorporate that into the design so that there's some early wins for the city in implementing the downtown vitalization plan.
Right, so just want
Yes.
to comment on,
Yes.
on your comment. So the downtown plan has gone through a number of challenges, just staffing in the city and the increased emphasis on housing, affordable housing, and just housing in general in the city, which has caused the reevaluation of parking requirements and access to alternative means of transportation. So the environmental study that was stopped and started, I believe is going to be restarted soon, as I understand it. So thank you.
Okay. Are we done?
Mhm.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have no closed session items, and so I think we're ready to adjourn, and in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, we'll be back for the board meeting. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Oh,
Thanks, Steph.
Michael? Yes, sir. Wi-Fi password?